Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be speaking about how to think about purchasing gold, what type of gold has different advantages, and I'm up at Goldenberry Coin in New Canaan, Connecticut. We've got a bunch of the type of gold that I personally really like if you have a good amount to spend on gold, and that's going to be the pre-33 gold. There's also going to be a few other things to consider. So how numismatic are you going to want your gold, in terms of should there be a lot of collector premium as opposed to just the pure gold itself? Should you be purchasing things like all the ones in front of us that are in PCGS or NGC authenticated third-party graded holders, or should you be avoiding these? Should you be purchasing, how are we thinking about some of the higher premium items or something with a CAC sticker? That's probably going to be more covered in depth in a different video, but there's a lot of considerations, and that's what I'm going to talk through. So the first thing to think about is the authentication. Now, for a lot of things like common date Morgan dollars, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to do a certified coin if it's going to be in AU condition, or you have to really think about how much are you spending to get the plastic that's going to authenticate it, in addition to provide that grade. And I think that that's super important when you think about the gold here. If it's going to be not extreme numismatic premiums, the amount of money that you'd spend on a $20 gold piece is going to be probably at least $1,800 with today's prices. And the relative percentage that you're paying to have the coin certified is going to be much smaller versus, say, I always tell people to avoid buying, Mint State 69 American Silver Eagles that were made in the previous year. That doesn't make any sense, but there can be a little bit more, a relative confidence that's put in at a much lower cost when you're buying something like graded gold. Now, in terms of how much value, so a little bit of an aside, I don't put as much value into something that says first strike. If you're thinking about Mint State 70, I did a little bit of research. It's not a super rare item to have this in Mint State 70, but the fact is that people will pay slightly more for Mint State 70 gold. It's all a matter of how you're going to be purchasing it. Now, if you're looking at something like a $50 gold piece from 1986, that has a lot more rarity when it comes in 70 versus 69, whereas if you look at the pop reports for like PCGS Mint State 70 coins from 2013, there's probably 10 times more certified in 70 versus 69. So while there is a little bit of a collector premium, it's not like you're going to have to pay up hugely. Now, I just think, personally, how I've approached gold, I've preferred the pre-33 because there is some authentic sort of original collectability. It's not like, people were buying these in bulk rolls from the mint and they were all Mint State 70 coins. No, these were produced in many cases, and certainly in the ones in front of us, to circulate. It was equivalent to the $20 gold certificate. This had slightly less than 1 ounce of gold in it, which would have corresponded with the official government peg $20.67 price of gold. But there's also, I think something to think about with these is that if the gold appreciates, you have some upside, and you're already confident that's a real coin and real gold because of that third-party guarantee that NGC or PCGS would provide. But there's also the fact that Mint State 63 coins, 62, they're reasonably attractive, and there can be some real collectible. People want to assemble a full set of these. They're beautiful. I think that really matters. And then again, there's that full confidence that these are real. So if the price of gold goes way up, you're going to still see some premium, and possibly the premium even increasing. Whereas if the price of gold goes down, well, it may not be quite as liquid as like a 1 ounce, government bullion, the modern stuff like this. It might not be quite as liquid, but there's also probably going to be more of the premium retained because people aren't solely and purely buying these for the gold value that's inside. I think that matters a lot to people, but they're also quite rare, and they're quite, they have a lot of eye appeal. So I think that's something that we've seen in the past. And I think one of the other disadvantages, if you're a really small time investor in purchasing something that's of this size, is say you only have $500 to invest. Well, you couldn't purchase this, and it's going to be slightly less, you can't split it up. So there might be some smaller forms of golds. If you have, of course, 500, you're not going to be able to purchase one of these. But if you anticipate in the future that you would need to have the liquidity to get out of some of it and maybe retain some of it as well. Something like this, maybe you'd want to think about purchasing $10 increments. Now, there's no St. Gaudens for the tens, or you could think about going with some of the world gold, but I'm mostly talking if you're considering putting a fair amount of money into gold. Now, I think that it makes sense to have a reasonable allocation, maybe do a little bit of the modern bullion with the gold. You also want to do a little bit of the collectible stuff. I mean, right here, we have some nice coins and the CAC stickers. I really think that's something that's been established as identifying quality gold. Often it's undergraded, but certainly the eye appeal is there, and people pay a lot more for the CAC sticker gold. That's probably not my domain of a ton of expertise, so I'm not going to try to speak on stuff that I don't feel that I understand too well. But I think we've identified some of the advantages in some of the common date coins where you might be paying a 6 or 7 or 10% premium to the gold value, but if gold goes up and you feel like that's sort of your view, or you just want some downside, you may not even believe gold's going up, but you feel like you just should have a little bit of exposure in case everything else gets crushed. That's again, that's sort of the definition of a hedge. Going with some of the things that retain some collectability and retain authenticity and retain sort of beauty in American history makes a lot of sense to me when it can be acquired for not so much over. Now, don't go around paying double the gold price. I mean, you always want to just be smart in terms of not wildly overpaying because the gold dealer locally doesn't have fair prices. That there's always different cases where maybe something else is worth taking a little bit more of a risk on, but I feel that this is pretty safe stuff. And just when you're going into purchasing large volumes of gold, I think that you definitely want to consider some of the larger coins like what we have in front of us, because I think some of the other things that can be problematic is if you're purchasing like the $2.50 quarter eagles, the prices and the premiums on those can get wildly numismatic to the point that you're not sort of going back to the idea of having the gold investment, and then you really are getting into a numismatic investment. Same thing with silver. I've made some videos on silver in the past. If you think silver is going to go way up, probably not the time to be buying $1,000, $2,000 Morgan dollars, because most of the premium there is going to be in the numismatic value. I think that it's sort of nice to get the free, inbuilt numismatic premiums with something like the coin in front of us when you can acquire it for something that's really you're transacting gold, but you're still retaining the numismatic upside. So that's basically the main points that I wanted to bring up in this video. Again, you're protecting capital. You've got the protection of the grading company that it's authentic, and that certainly gives a lot of confidence in terms of how people are viewing it, because counterfeit gold definitely is a problem and certainly a topic for a different video. But I hope that you enjoyed this sort of understanding. I'd be curious to see if you sort of have a similar perspective to what I do. I think as a closing note, I think that there's some interesting stuff like this Jackie Robinson Mint State 70, some of the more modern commemorative gold. There's a fair amount of that out there. I think it's all in terms of like, what price are you buying it at? Do you have expertise? Do you enjoy collecting the different things that are being commemorated? I tend personally to trend more towards something like the St. Gaudens than a modern smaller gold piece, but I do know, in some cases, Mint State 70 is different, but that you can acquire sort of low. I worked at a coin shop a few years ago, and sometimes they would purchase some commemorative sets, and I would be able to purchase them for very, very low premium, if any, at the gold, just because they're a little bit less tradable than something like this, where when you go to sell, you're probably going to be able to retain some of that premium that you've paid up for it in the beginning, which is so important, not to mention any appreciation on the gold or appreciation on how much people are paying over, which again, there's not that huge downside risk that you might have on the super numismatic stuff. So that's pretty much my thoughts on this. Let me know what you think, and I'll be looking forward to reading the comments. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated. I've also got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so you can follow me there. TreasureTownYT.com is the main channel website. Definitely give that a visit. I've got a lot of information about me up there and the channel. Coingrabbag.com as well currently redirects there, but it's some good opportunities for very fair grab bags, both made by me and other sellers. A lot of different options, so that's a good way to support. There's also treasuretowncoins.com. In the future, my coin dealing operation will be done out of that website. Coinmeltprice.com for updates on the melt prices of your coins, both US and world. A lot of resources in that website. And then coinsmetalscards.com, being developed right now as a marketplace and news source for coins, metals, cards, and collectibles in general. So I'll see you on my future videos. Looking forward to seeing you there, and hope you have a good day.